Hey, I'm here with Nicole from NL Legal. We're here to chat about contracts and transactions. How are you today?
Great. Thanks
Welcome.
so much for having me, Tom. It's wonderful to be here.
Pleasure. We first met at Bartiga.
We did.
I was with some friends, Friday night, you were with a girlfriend. I think I tried to set her up on a date with a friend of
You
mine.
did.
And that was the first time we met.
Absolutely.
Hilarious.
Absolutely.
What are the really important things that you need to kind of know when reviewing a contract?
So I think it's really important for a buyer before they're ready to commit to a property to obtain legal advice, particularly if they're going to auction or if a 66W is being requested of the lawyer, because there's no cooling off period enabling the purchaser to walk away from the transaction.
How many transactions do you think are done with a 66W? I don't think, from my point of view, 95% of the deals we do, we have to get a 66W.
Absolutely. And I think it really depends upon the area in which you're doing the conveyancing. In the eastern suburbs around this area, most people have organised their finances first, which is the most important thing, and vendors aren't prepared to take the property off the market without a 66W. However, in certain other areas, things are done in a different way. So since we met one another in the bar, we've actually worked really well with one another. And Tom, why do you think that is?
So why I really like working with you is because I know that when I send you a contract, it's going to be reviewed within, 2 hours, reviewed very thoroughly. And I know that I've got everything that I need to kind of move ahead with the transaction. And the clients are always confident in the review that you've done. It's very thorough. And importantly, I think it gives us the ability to move quickly. And that's so, I think time and speed is correlated to good value a lot of the time when you're doing transactions. So the client's always winning out. And it's also the post exchange is that kind of service that you give. I think it's a lot like ours. Where we go over and above and beyond to make sure the client's happy. They know exactly where things are up to. We've got the dates, the pre-settlements, everything sorted. Give us a bit of a background. How did you get into what you do? Why property?
So when I finished university, I was always involved in litigation, and it just wasn't particularly my kind of speed. Then I moved on and got myself a job doing retail leasing for Westfield.
Oh, wow.
And that was actually really awesome and I loved it, but I felt the need to want to do something on my own.
Right.
And then I started up my own practice.
And how long have you had NL Legal?
Gosh, I think we're coming up to around about 22 years
God.
now. I know. So with that obviously comes lots of experience.
Yeah.
Seeing lots of transactions.
Yeah.
Seeing how things go wrong, seeing how you can help your client. And
Do you have any stories of where things have gone wrong?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess it's really important for a buyer to have obtained advice.
Yeah.
Some people really don't understand what they're doing if they don't have the advice of a buyer's agent or a lawyer with them. And they can make mistakes such as signing contracts prior to obtaining that advice.
Yeah. How much of the contract is really important, because some of them are really thick?
They can be. And I'm going to say all of it.
Yeah, okay.
So it's all important for different reasons. For example, obviously the settlement terms and all the easy commercial stuff is on the front page of the contract.
Gotcha.
And that's kind of where you go.
Where I can
assist.
change things. Yeah.
Absolutely, and change things. Title searches are important because we need to make sure that the person who's on the front page of the contract is obviously authorised to sell the property. So that's of importance. Council certificates are super important with respect to any proposed development that people want to do.
Yeah.
And sewage drainage diagrams also for the same reason. If it's running through the middle of the property, you might not be able to put a swimming pool on. You need consent and all those sorts of things.
You mentioned settlement. Now, a kind of trend that I've noticed recently is that settlement terms are playing more and more of a part in a deal than ever before. It used to be that almost every transaction, it was just the standard 6-week settlements, and that was kind of a given and just accepted. I'd suggest that there's as much as 70% of the deals that we do have changes to the settlement terms. Are you finding that, and how important is that?
Definitely. Particularly in a market where there's not that much on the market, people need longer time to find themselves something if they're selling their home.
Yeah.
So I do think that 3 months has become pretty standard these days. It's something we see a lot. And then likewise on the buyer's side, if it's a developer or someone wanting to do works to the property, they might be seeking a longer settlement.
Yeah.
So they've got the time to go through the DA process.
There's so many transactions fall over just because of settlement.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes purchasers actually get upset with the fact that a vendor can delay settlement without any penalties to them. And you have to try and explain to them, well, unfortunately, they don't owe you any money, which is where the penalty interest comes into things.
Yeah.
But that can be quite a sticky thing to have a discussion with the purchaser around.
It is interesting because they can do that without penalties and really muck up if you arrange movers and you're homeless essentially.
Absolutely.
Simultaneous settlements.
Absolutely.
How do they work? Are they fun?
That is definitely one of the things that is quite tricky.
Yeah.
When somebody's buying and selling at the same time and they've got their trucks there in the morning, if settlement is delayed from the time that it's meant to be there, vendors don't want to give the purchasers access. Purchasers are basically sitting in these trucks with all their things out the front of the place, and that can be quite stressful for them.
How often are banks the reason?
Oh gosh, all the time.
Yeah.
But I must say, PEXA has really streamlined the way settlements work for us.
Yeah.
Previously, prior to that, we all used to go into a room and scream out for the relevant parties, hand over bank checks, which could have had mistakes.
So archaic.
It is so archaic.
Thank you so much for coming in. It's been really interesting to chat about your work and let's get that deal that we were talking about, John.
Definitely. Thanks.
The contract's reviewed, right? Yeah.
Definitely. Hang on, that was within 2 hours on my birthday.
It was.
On
your birthday too. I felt terrible. But thank you. I wish it happened then. It would have been a nice birthday present for us.
Definitely.
Thanks so much.
Absolute pleasure. And thanks for having me on today.